you guys? I'm Isabela Santos, and I'm honored to be here in this amazing Women's Summit. It is actually organized by three of my favorite women in Bitcoin. So, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. This panel, I actually want to start with something that I don't think gets said enough. Most people who need Bitcoin the most don't know it yet. They're probably not here on Twitter. They're probably not here in the summit. They're probably not watching charts, and they're just living their lives in a system that was never designed to work for them. And the people on this stage, they figured out how to reach those people, not through white papers, not through price predictions, but through patience, through community, through sitting across from someone and saying, let me show you something that changed my life. So I run a Bitcoin circular economy on an island in Mexico. And I can tell you the moment that Bitcoin stopped being an investment and started being something my neighbor used to pay lunch, everything changed. So that's what this panel is about. It's about Bitcoin being used in real life. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to introduce you to this powerhouse. So please give it up for Lorraine Marcel. She is a financial activist and Bitcoin advocate who has empowered women across 13 African American countries through, sorry, 13 African countries through Bitcoin Dada and its developer arm, Dada Devs. Forbes, Coindesk, and Bitcoin communities have all taken notice. She was actually named the most impactful African Bitcoiner in 2024. Ooh.
Thank
Next,
you
we're going to
so
give it
much.
up. Oh, sorry, Lorraine.
No. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're going to give it up for Lauren Siekman, the co-director and co-producer of Unbanked, a Bitcoin documentary that explores Bitcoin as a tool for financial empowerment and self-sovereignty. She is proof that storytelling might be our most powerful adoption tool.
Thank you.
And a dear friend of mine, Mir Liponi, who is the newly appointed head of Cyphertank, a key player in the Plan B Lugano ecosystem, and the host of A Block with Mir, a podcast that's coming back for season 2 after a 10-year hiatus. Welcome, ladies.
Wow, so happy to be here and to be hosted by you, Isa, and sharing all this story with you, women. It's amazing.
I love it. I'm excited. Obviously, like if I cut you off, please, I will stop myself. There's going to be a little bit of delays here. We're in technology and everything. So the way that I want to kind of structure this panel is I'm going to ask you first individual questions, and then I'll ask all three of you guys. And if we have time, we're going to do some Q&A from the audience, and we're going to keep this very interactive. First, Lorraine, I want to ask you, a circular economy obviously sounds great on paper, but what does it actually take to get a merchant to start accepting Bitcoin and, stay with it?
Okay. That's a good question. And one of the things that I would say is, as Bitcoin educators, where we fail in onboarding merchants and basically just anyone who is interested in Bitcoin is sort of like starting with the jargons, right? I feel like for one to successfully onboard a merchant, you need to first understand their challenges. What are their pain points? So, for example, for me, when I'm approaching a merchant or the everyday person, the first thing that I would start conversing with them is, What is your strongest point when it comes to finances? Is it, do you want to receive instant payments? Is it payment friction? Do you want to access a whole new market? Once you understand what their challenges are, then it's very easy for you to introduce Bitcoin as a solution. Then the second thing that one needs to understand is, for a merchant to truly be able to relate with Bitcoin, they have to use a tool that is easy to use, right? So even the wallets that we're introducing to merchants have to be very easy to use. They don't have to feel like another technical or another educational program that they're joining. So the tool is also important. Understanding their challenge, the tool is also important. And then lastly, the more these merchants receive Bitcoin customers, for lack of a better word, they constantly receive people who pay in Bitcoin. They move from that point of experimentation to actually feeling that they belong and they actually want to use Bitcoin. I think those are the three key tools that I would use, and I've also used, and it has worked. So making them feel that this is not just experimentation, but this is something that can solve their problems and challenges. So meeting them at their level and not at our level.
100%, like meeting them where they are, which also, like, it makes sense. And I can all I can think about is like building trust. Like, how would you even like build trust with these merchants, especially like when you're coming up to them? So that leads me to my next question to me, or like, how do you build trust before you even get to like the technical stuff?
It's very, very hard, but at the same time, it's about meeting them where they are, but also as human beings. So the relationship is very important. So I found myself going around to the merchants in Lugano and started a chat with them. And over time, they trusted me. And so they finally understand that I think it's very important, the relationship and the fact that I look like a normal person to their eyes. I'm not a nerd or just like a shitty person, but somebody, a mom with two kids going around accepting and using Bitcoin. So trust is about the relationship and also something that you build over time. So we chat, we explain to each other what is Bitcoin and if Bitcoin can be a useful tool for them. And what I've learned that sometimes you come here with the same ideas, but everybody has a different view. So you have to try in different ways, and at some point is going to click, and sometimes it's not going to click. So the relationship and talking, getting feedbacks, and understand from them is super important, and also competition in a way. So you build trust even with this because if other people are trusting you, is creating a web of trust of people. So this merchant over there is accepting Bitcoin. And so I trust that merchant. So maybe I can trust this person, and it's creating this sort of a web of trust. But it takes time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of motivation. So we have to be very, very, patient over time. But usually it works in my experience. You don't want to be too much to insist too much, but you want to be consistent in that and show your face and you are a real person using Bitcoin. That to me is the most important thing to build the trust.
So I want you guys to keep this question in mind, because I'm going to ask Lauren something, and then I want to go back on like how you keep merchants using Bitcoin and accepting Bitcoin. But before I ask you guys that, Lauren, obviously you spent years telling stories about this. What's the barrier that people don't talk about enough?
That's a good question. I think this is something we'll get into, but I think Bitcoin is something different depending on where you are. And so I think the barriers are very different depending on where you are. I think a big barrier is that it's different. And maybe someone doesn't understand how it relates to them. So I'm a big advocate for stories, obviously. So I'm a big believer in, a way to overcome that barrier is by sharing stories about Bitcoin, whether it's your personal story with somebody, whether it's someone else's story. I made a documentary, but it doesn't have to be that big of a project. It's as simple as just sharing your personal story with Bitcoin to a family member, to a merchant, to anybody. I think change is something that is scary. And sometimes, if you think about something like money, that is a big thing to want to come out of a comfort zone. I mean, money, we're here to provide for our families. We want stability. So I think people sometimes are afraid for change. And I think change is a scary thing. So I think building a community and sharing your story with people and them finding a connection to it, I think I think the key is being able to find a personal connection to Bitcoin. I think that helps people overcome that barrier of change being scary.
Yeah, and maybe if I can just add on to what Lauren has said, other than change, I feel like one of the biggest barriers that people face is not having that sense of belonging. For example, I deal with specifically women, like African females. And one of the things that I've seen with them is not being able to, have the confidence that they actually truly belong in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So when you create the relationships, when you create that trust, they start to feel like, yes, I can actually participate in this ecosystem. I can use this Bitcoin as a tool. I am able, I am not dumb, I am not foolish, I am not, those whatever quote unquote the stereotypes that are placed on women. So creating the spaces, the safe spaces for whether you're working with women, whether you're working with merchants, whether you're just working with ordinary people or even developers, them just understanding that they belong in this particular ecosystem and Bitcoin is a tool for everyone is very important. And yeah, so for me, I can say that's the biggest barrier that I've seen, emotional barrier that I've seen with a lot of people.
And that's one thing, like you mentioned, like it's super cool, like one of the barriers, but like how do you make it simple for regular people? Because many people are like, oh, Bitcoin is so complicated. I'm not a techie person. Like, how do you get over that?
Okay, again, back to my point. My first point is not starting with jargons, because I feel like a lot of people, when we talk about Bitcoin, we start with mining algorithms, cryptography, I don't know, all those kinds of big words. So I feel meeting people at their level, understanding first what they need before introducing them to all this tech level. And then something else that I would say is technology in itself. Every technology has been at some point felt like, hard. For example, internet for our parents was something that was like really hard because again, it's a new concept. People need their time to actually try and understand it. Smartphones, when smartphones came, people also felt like, again, our parents felt like, okay, this is a whole new technology. But the more people the more people use this technology, the more it becomes easier and easier for them. So with Bitcoin Data, we focus mainly on practical sessions for the ladies to actually use the tool itself. So yes, we have the theory classes, but then what about the practical sessions where the merchants, where the students can actually send sats from one person to the other, or they can receive sats. So it makes them feel like, oh, so this is not even that hard. During one of our wallet sessions, I was able to send one of our, I think it was our Malawi student, Satoshi's, and it was her first time to receive sats. And that moment actually just, it blew their mind that, so this thing is as easy as just clicking a phone, dialing something and you receive the sat to you. So I think that's also like practicing with them on practical level is instead of just giving them theory all the time.
Mir, I actually want to highlight something because so Lugano is in a first world country. And many
Yes.
people think Bitcoin is for developing countries, like they'll need it the most and everything. And like, how did you guys manage to get over that barrier and get people to spend Bitcoin rather than just like have like a full on like stack and never touch it? Because at the end of the day, like supposedly it's supposed to be money, you know?
Yeah, so I'm going to be super honest. So there is a trick in Lugano. We got a help from the town council that distributed like the POS to pay with Bitcoin to all the merchants of the city. And a merchant, so it was a top-down operation that it worked out very well because people in Switzerland don't need Bitcoin. The point is we are working to make these people to understand how much Bitcoin is needed, even if right now the situation is good for them, if still they have cash and they have freedom and they have money and everything, but Bitcoin is more. So the payment system is working pretty well at the moment in Lugano. We have like 300 merchants and services accepting Bitcoin, and Lugano is a very small city. It's just like a big town. So the concentration, I think, is an unicum in the world. But we are working all the time to make people to understand the value of Bitcoin and using Bitcoin. And so it's all about education. It's all about, so many merchants are accepting Bitcoin because it's just like a good marketing. They don't understand. So it's very important to educate them and to show them the benefits of using Bitcoin and to propose Bitcoin to the clients. And so we got the toughest part covered, but now there is also this part and also working again to make the clients and the merchant itself to use Bitcoin in proper ways, which means permissionless in a non-custodial way. And this is very difficult because at the moment, is still like a gateway between them. So the education never stops. So they don't need Bitcoin at the moment. You have to make them understand they are going to need Bitcoin, and it's such a powerful tool. So that's our challenge. But of course, the payment system and everything is working pretty well, but still a lot of work to do, guys. So if you are just like doing that and you feel that oh well, once I'm going to have all many merchants accept Bitcoin is over, unfortunately, it's not over at all because they have few transactions every month, and we want people to really use Sats, and it's becoming more difficult than we thought.
No, and especially, I don't know if you guys knew this, but like in the States, they filed like the 1099 DA, which is this tax form that all the exchanges have to report to the IRS, all the transactions, all like everything. So I kind of wanted to know like what you guys thought about this because in ever since the exchanges came to be, people stopped mining Bitcoin and they sort of like just like they took the easy route to get Bitcoin from an exchange. And we're seeing now recently how this is going to affect everyone. Like the government's going to know apparently how much money you bought on your exchange. And like, do you guys have, any advice to people that buy Bitcoin on an exchange and they try to go and use it? You know what I mean? Like, I would like to get
Yeah,
your thoughts on that.
yeah, well, you have to become a cypherpunk at that point. You have no choice. Coin mixing, I am sorry, but you have to be kind of technical because you didn't know at the time. But of course,
Yeah.
you did the right choice buying Bitcoin because, yeah, probably you had a nice price or whatever, but your identity will be always linked to this Bitcoin. And it's even worse than other scenario because the blockchain is really transparent. Everybody can see and link your transaction from that moment on. Luckily, we have developers all the time developing amazing things just like a coin mixing. And so we can get rid of these traces. And sometimes it's just like, I kind of provoked people in the past that telling them maybe sometimes it's better not to have Bitcoin KYC. It's a provocation, of course, it's better to have that, but there are some sort of consequences that you have to deal with. And once again, education is so important. So if we reach people and we can prevent people from going through exchange and have and spend sets between them directly, we can prevent even this barrier technology that is going to be difficult, because at the point coin mixing is very difficult, and all the challenges and all the threats are going to eliminate it from the beginning. So education could be once again the answer, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And maybe just one application or tool that I would urge people to try out is the Vexel. It's non-KYC, so it allows you to trade Bitcoin peer-to-peer. That's one. And since communities are coming up, you also want to have people that you trust that you can be able to, send, again, do P2P with. So for example, with Bitcoin Data, if I have 10 girls who need to trade, we can always use that community, and that kind of cuts off that barrier or that challenge when the government or the institutions come in and invade your privacy or breach your privacy. So I think that is one thing people should really look into.
And it's also super interesting to see, we were talking about like coin mixing and everything. And we just had one of the founders from the Samurai wallet be arrested because he created sort of like this alternative to kind of keep Bitcoiners, coins anonymous. So it's hard to see how in some places we have like top down approaches like in Lugano in El Salvador where the government is sort of like helping. But I kind of want to know like you guys' thoughts on like, do you think you need both, the top down or bottom up? Which is gonna come first? Like, are we even gonna like eventually like 10 years from now? I know you cannot see the future, but I kind of want to know like your theories on what you think is gonna happen. Or are we gonna have like mini Bitcoin communities all over the world? Is everyone gonna be using Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'll just start real quick. So, based on my experience making this documentary, we filmed all over the world. We filmed in 5 different countries, the US being one. We filmed in Harlem. So we have the Harlem Bitcoin community that they want to build a circular economy. But, in the US, like we mentioned, it's very complicated. The tax implications are very complicated. We're not incentivized to build circular economies with Bitcoin in America. So you really have to want it and know how to kind of make it work. In a place like Argentina, for example, they're a grassroots movement. They now, because they have new leadership there, that leadership is very supportive of Bitcoin. But before, it was a grassroots movement because the people, there's a quote in our movie that someone says in Argentina that you don't have to tell people why Bitcoin, because they know. I mean, they've been experiencing these issues with money for the longest time. So I think it really just depends on everyone's situation. I think in the US, our money works relatively well, compared to, I would not say it's perfect by any means, but it works better than a place like Argentina. So people in America, I would say right now, probably the biggest use case of Bitcoin in America is number go up, unfortunately. And that goes back to education. And I think in a place like America, I don't know the future, but I would say in a place like America, we may need some sort of top down. I don't know. Or it'll be people like Harlem Bitcoin who are trying to build these things and growing community. But in a place like Argentina, a place where it's necessary, Bitcoin makes sense for everybody already. It's the people driving it. But I think in a place like America, it's tricky because our money does work relatively well compared to these places. So I don't know is my answer. I'm not sure if that is helpful.
Yeah, so I believe the motivations in different countries, in different countries are different. Other places it's about numbers go up, other places it's a lifeline. And for Africa, I would say it's a lifeline, and that's why we're seeing a lot of transactions happening in Africa. And on your question on whether it's a bottom up or top down, I believe again it's relative to a jurisdiction. So where I'm at, my continent, it's bottom up because of the challenges that we face. If you look at the monetary systems in Africa, they're basically just bad. Just trying to not use the some certain languages. But anyway, so yeah, where I'm at, when the monetary systems are really broken, we're facing, frictions when it comes to payment. Cross-border is quite hard. We have close to 45 different currencies. We can't trade with other countries. So definitely, people are trying to look for what's the other alternative, what's the other option. So they really don't care about, okay, so Bitcoin will go to, I don't know, 100K, 300K in 10 years. They just want to live on a day-to-day basis. They want to survive. They want to make payments. Looking at also like countries that face regimes, for them, it's not like, okay, I'm waiting, I'm going to hodl and wait for this Bitcoin to go to 300K or 400K. For them is, how do I survive this particular day? How do I make my day or my finances better? So I think it's really, that particular question is really relative, and it really depends on the jurisdiction. In terms of, do I see if Bitcoin will be, if we'll live in a hyper Bitcoinized world? I am certainly not sure, because now we're seeing institutions and governments, coming in and buying Bitcoin in big chunks. So I'm not certain about it. Bitcoin is starting to turn into digital gold. Has its advantages and also its disadvantages. So that is something that the future can only tell. But I'm really grateful that we're seeing a lot of communities coming up. We're seeing a lot of people embracing Bitcoin, whether it's through numbers go up, or whether it's through, this is a tool that will help me get to the next level. So yeah.
So I'm looking at the chat right now, and I saw that there's a lot of new women in Bitcoin. And I wanted to ask all of you guys if you can sort of like present to them and explain how important is Bitcoin in real life? The aspects of Bitcoin that maybe are not so obvious.
So
Okay.
I remember this summer. So I was living in Switzerland already, having the best life, and I got unbanked in Switzerland. Do you remember, Isa? So I got unbanked from one day to another because yeah, they decided that, well, actually, guys, I have to confess, I used one of the the things that you are quoting in the chat. I used RoboSets, and my bank wasn't happy about that, even if the amount was very, very, very low. And so from one day to another, they just keep me out from my bank account. And since I was coming, I just arrived to Switzerland, I didn't have my another bank account because I was opening my second bank account, or was just open it. So I decided to live as an unbanked in Lugano for like 11 days. The experiment lasted for 11 days. And so I got to experience how powerful can be Bitcoin to survive in this kind of situation. So I use Bitcoin, and you is even more for 21 days in a more challenging situation. And so for me, it was the first time using Bitcoin truly as a medium of exchange, completely for every type of purchase. So it got me a lot of problem solving. But for the majority of the things that I needed, I survived. But also, I needed some friends. I need to use new systems. I needed to use a lot, be it refill. And other thing is not easy to live in Bitcoin only. But if it was my only option, I had that option. It was so powerful to me, that experiment. So when people now on Twitter, Bitcoin X, are ranting just like Bitcoin doesn't work, Lightning doesn't work, I could have survived for 11 days as a family of 4 people without Bitcoin and without having Lightning working for real. Well, it worked. So in real life, I am in a privileged country, privileged life, but I experiment that. And so I can tell you it worked. I'm pretty happy that Bitcoin exists. We have this alternative. Is it perfect? Nope. We can use it for everything? Nope. Still. Everywhere? Nope. We need a lot of problem solving? Yes. But we have this alternative. And this really opened my eyes. And I've been in a space for quite some time, but it was the first time for me using it in my everyday life, and it works.
You even got your eye exam.
Okay.
I remember.
Yeah. It was funny because during that 11 days, I just realized that I needed my driver's license to be renewed. Actually, it was the Swiss one, and then I checked it, and they wanted my exam for I, and I was like, oh my gosh, how can I do that with Bitcoin? Actually, it was super easy because in front of my office there were just like an optics. I stepped in Bitcoin, and I was like, oh gosh, this is so easy in Lugano. I had other challenges, trust me. Once I wanted to take a train, it was impossible to take a pay with Bitcoin for the train. So it was like I had to ask some friends to cover and pay them with Bitcoin to get some fiat to pay the train. So, but that thing especially was super easy, and it was very nice. I got a certification and sent in through mail, and yes, paid in Bitcoin. I don't know how many people paid their optics examination site exam with Bitcoin. Probably it's a very, very, very rare case, but it worked out. Yes.
That's awesome. Lorraine, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, and it's actually sad what happened to you, but something that I also wanted to remind the audience and all of us is that as women, because this is Women of Bitcoin Summit, for the longest time, women have been kept like in a cage, right? I believe it's only just recently that women were allowed to work, to open bank accounts by themselves, allowed to own property, go to schools and all that, right? And for some countries, a lot of women are still going through that, that they're still in that cage. They can't go, they can't get education, they can't open a bank account. It still happens in some areas. So we're just like, we are lucky we are not in those kind of situations. So for me, why Bitcoin is so important. And I've had so many people asking me, why did you choose Bitcoin to empower the African female? And my biggest answer for me is it's permissionless. It's completely permissionless. I don't need to seek permission from anyone, not my family, not the government, not, literally no one. So I feel like this was a gift from Satoshi to literally everyone and specifically to women. It's like giving you your power back, right? So these are the challenges that you have faced, regardless whether you face them, whether you've not faced them. But the reality is women for the longest time have been placed in that cage, right? And even in times of war, when anything happens in a country, when the economy is bad, in times of war, in times when the inflation goes up, whatever, women are the ones who actually feel it more, right? We are the caretakers of their families, right? We run most households. So for me, Bitcoin coming in, it's a tool that gives us back our freedom. You can do literally whatever you want with Bitcoin, whether it's just holding it as a savings tool, whether it's transacting with somebody else in a different country. You can send me Bitcoin, I can send you Bitcoin, and no one will ask me, hey, why are you sending or receiving Bitcoin from somebody in States, right? You can send Bitcoin, you can hold it, you can even, improve your business. And one of the things that I would tell all merchants, female merchants in their call, is that if you want to increase your, what is it called? Your market, one of the things that you should consider is accepting Bitcoin. That way, you're not just dealing with the locals. You also have like people from outside who can actually come and purchase your product or service. So that's also another area. So for me, the biggest thing I would say Bitcoin did for humanity is making it a level playing field, right, for everyone. So whether you're male, female, regardless, doesn't matter. White, black, Asian, doesn't matter. We all have the same opportunity, and let's use this tool to better our economies. Let's use this tool to better our families, our communities, and also like even our individual selves.
Lauren, what about you? Like, how would you tell the new women that are joining Bitcoin that are new how important Bitcoin is in real life?
Yeah, so I would start from my own journey as a woman getting into Bitcoin. because I live in the US, so my situation with Bitcoin is a little bit different. I would say I grew up as a woman thinking I understood the financial system and getting to a point where I realized I didn't. And that was a very scary thing to realize. And I think, one of the points you made earlier is what do you say if people say, well, Bitcoin is too complicated for the regular person? Well, I would say our financial system is actually very complicated and very not transparent but they make it so easy to use still. So you're using the financial system, but you're really not knowing how it works. And that is dangerous. That is why we have people are in trouble. People are in debt. People are not saving for the future because they don't understand our money in our system. It is very complex behind the scenes, but they make it extremely easy to use. Now, something like Bitcoin is complicated. I would say if I think Bitcoin is complicated for the regular person, but I don't think it's a bad thing. It forces you to learn. It forces you to take control of your financial situation. Uh, researching on your own, becoming financially literate. I think it's actually a beautiful thing. And then you learn, you join a beautiful community, and you're on your way to becoming a self-sovereign individual and self-sovereign woman. And I think it's a feature, not a bug. So for me, I think one of the most empowering things as a woman getting into Bitcoin, at least in America, was not even Bitcoin itself, but the financial literacy and sovereignty that I was able to bring over myself. So yeah.
You said that so beautifully. Like literally money is so easy to use, but the system is literally ruined and people have no idea about
No
this.
idea.
Like
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about how complex it really is, even the experts don't even understand truly how it works because there's too many people doing things and there's no way to quantify it. All these charts like I think about I went to, I studied I didn't finish college, but when I was in college, I studied, macro, micro, and I just remember doing all these charts and everything was about charts and graphs, but nobody has any clue. That's not the way the system works. It's too complex to have accurate graphs and charts. And I just think it's just not a transparent system, but it is way too easy to use that people fall in these traps, and that's why they get in trouble. And it's a scary thing.
no, it's truly a shame. And especially like, in college, someone can the average American goes to school for the next like 21 years of their life. They graduate and they do not know or understand why the government sells that we need inflation. Like my brother's studying economics, and I ask him, I'm like, ask your professor why he says that inflation is needed. And the professor can't even answer that. It's crazy. So, anything you guys want to add before we jump off to our Q&A from our audience?
I think maybe just something that I would add on to that is, and I do agree with you, when it comes to financial education, I don't think it's just like a Western problem. It's literally everywhere. And I believe that that is really intentional. I mean, if you have an ignorant population, it's very easy for you to control it, right? So this is very intentional by the people in power. Keep the masses ignorant, control them, because anyone who controls your money basically controls you.
Literally, keep the masses ignorant. That's crazy. But that's the playbook every single country is following. All right. Now we're going to continue to our audience. We have a couple questions. If you guys have any favorite questions, you can click upvote and it will be like the first question. We have about 6 minutes. So we're going to start with this one. Are there any apps, wallets that allow you to charge a card with Bitcoin to spend every day in stores, services that wouldn't take Bitcoin? Who wants to answer that one?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll go.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you go first.
Go ahead. Okay, so I'll go, but I will focus on the products that I've used. And one of the products for the people in Africa that you can check out is Bitnob. So Bitnob has a card that you can be able, it's a virtual card, not even a physical card, that enables you to spend your sats on basically, I think, the basic expenses. So things like paying subscriptions, buying gifts, etc. So Bitnob is one particular application that you want to check out if you're in Africa.
Are all merchants on BTC map? I can answer this
Absolutely.
one. All of
Absolutely
them?
not.
I would. Yeah, I was gonna say, girl, absolutely not.
Thankfully,
No.
thankfully, because it's fine to, it's very nice to find other ones. And yeah, there are plenty more of them. Yeah.
The other question: what are some book recommendations you have for an easy start on Bitcoin?
Hmm.
I will obviously
Ooh,
have to
I'll
say
take that.
Natalie's book. Natalie's new book that came out last year, Bitcoin is for Everyone. So I have to say that one. I would say I started in my journey. The first book I ever read was the Bitcoin Standard. So that was kind of my first entry book, which I think is a great starter book as well. But there's so many good books out there. Inventing Bitcoin is another really good book that I loved, that I felt like was very basic and really covered everything. There's so many good books.
Okay, so for me, I would go for the simplest BTC book. I'm forgetting her name. Let me just check. Simplest BTC book. I think that is actually the simplest Bitcoin book you can find. I mean, all other books are great. I have a couple of Bitcoin books, but if you're really feeling like this is too tech for you, I would ask you to read that. Just checking the name of the author. So just a minute. Yeah, okay. So somebody, yeah, okay, Kisa is here. So she's actually in the audience and she's posted it. So if you want to check it out, she's posted the link. You can check it out. So that's my number one for newbies.
I will also add another book by a woman, Chiara Bickers, is Bitcoin Clarity. Is a great book, not very famous, but it's one of my favorites. So if you want, if you are just like somebody as me that love Bitcoin books and tend to collect them, this is a gem you don't want to miss. Bitcoin Clarity.
Okay, you all recommended books. I'm gonna recommend shows on YouTube because I love fiction books. So it's so hard for me to finish nonfiction books. So if you wanna like quick crash course, you can watch The Exit Manual or BTC Isla on YouTube. And they're like 10-minute videos, super easy to digest, just to start getting your feet in the water. Um, the next question, let's see. So thanks for this information. I'm totally new in this Bitcoin world and I'm just here to learn a little bit about Bitcoin. I don't even know how to buy or how to start. So if you haven't purchased Bitcoin yet, don't go on an exchange yet.
I would
Who
probably
wants to take it
recommend,
from here?
so I would probably recommend to go to planb.network because we have plenty of tutorials from the very beginning. Everything is free. So go there, is I think is the best repository that is about Bitcoin and for free, and you are going to be sure that is made by the right people with the right advice and everything. Plan B network is the answer. We worked hard during the last year to create all that tutorials.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. How safe it is to go to Isla Mujeres and pay in sats? Am I a target or is it normal? It is super safe to come to Isla Mujeres. Especially, I know there's a whole commotion of everything that's happening in Mexico, but I think the social media madness kind of blew it out of proportion because here where I am, it's pretty safe. Um, am I a target? No, because people here view more Bitcoin just like to transact. I don't think they they know like they don't relate Bitcoin with wealth. And I think in many countries you can find that like just because you own Bitcoin doesn't mean you're a multimillionaire or you're super rich or have 100 Bitcoin. I've met many people throughout my Bitcoin journey that have been into Bitcoin since like 2010 or 2015, and they don't even have 1 Bitcoin yet. So many people accuse, individuals to own so much Bitcoin just because they talk about it. So it's not a target as much as it is in France. If you're a Bitcoiner, do not go to France right now. There. Do we have time for one more question or should I wrap it up? Okay, so someone just said I can wrap it up. Um, Ladies, thank you so much for joining me. It was my first panel, so online. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there was something that I missed, please feel free to say something before we close.
So thank you very
Um,
much for everything, and I've learned so many new things from you, and also I am very excited by the level of the question and on the discussion going on the chat. Wow, this is really impressive. We are very strong. Bitcoin women are amazing. I knew, but right now I'm certain, and it's way better than my highest expectation. And I started 12 years ago in Bitcoin, so it's keeping growing, increasing in such an amazing level, and I'm I'm super happy. I go to bed now completely happy.
Absolutely. And just to add on to what she said, I think this is evidence that women are indeed interested in learning about Bitcoin because we have so many newbies, we have so many female Bitcoiners who've actually joined. So it's not that women are not interested in this technology, but they're just not, they don't feel like they belong. And this is an environment that has really brought out numbers tonight or today, depending on where you are joining us from. And then lastly, I would like to tell the women, especially the beginners, the one thing that you can do for yourself is invest in knowledge. There's so many free materials outside and free resources. You don't even have to pay for this knowledge. We've shared some wonderful books that you can go through. There's also like a lot of podcasts around Bitcoin. Efra does that. She has a podcast, so you can also watch that and just try to understand everyday usage of Bitcoin and how Bitcoin actually helps people around the world as well. There are programs like Bitcoin Dada that you can also join. Well, if you're an African female, feel free to join our program. And also in the West, there are so many other programs and initiatives that are just focused on helping individuals, not just necessarily women, but individuals learning and understanding about Bitcoin. So before you buy your first Satoshi, before you go to that step, invest in knowledge, invest in knowledge. So that's just what I would want to emphasize on.
And the only thing I would say is also just don't be afraid to share your story because you never know, even if you only talk to one person, you never know, and do not underestimate the power that that has. So I would just encourage everyone to go talk about Bitcoin, like go have a conversation with your family, with friends, with a merchant, make some TikToks, like whatever you want to do, just don't be afraid to share your story.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. And also, if you want to learn, I'm doing a mini Bitcoin 101 course April 9 to the 12th here on the island in person, and you're all welcome to join. Thank you guys again.
Thank you. Bye.